You're wasting AI on small talk. Pure, undiluted power trapped in chit-chat. Today, I'll show you how to turn AI from a talker into a worker. Agents that plan, call Microsoft Graph via MCP, use Azure OpenAI tool calling with managed identity, and auto-remediate incidents. No live demo, just the containment field you can copy. By the end, you'll know the blueprint to ship agents that reduce MTTR, auto-resolve tickets, and cut cycle time in IT ops. Let's energize the reactor and make it act. The shift from answering to acting. You see, traditional chat is like hiring a brilliant intern who only whispers suggestions, nice but useless at 3 a.m. when a critical service is down. Acting agents are different. They understand context, decide, grab the right tool, push the button, then verify the blast radius didn't melt the floor. Here's the shift in physics. Old way, Q&A loops. You ask, it answers, you do the work. Latency everywhere. New way, intention, plan, tool use, result, self-check, next move. The reactor runs a cycle. You supervise the dials. Quick micro story. Last quarter, an SRE team let an agent watch high CPU alerts on a front-end pool. The agent parsed the incident, cross-checked a recent deployment via Graph, saw a spike only on nodes running a specific build, drained those nodes, rolled back the slot, and posted the incident note. All inside change policy. Human arrived to resolved. That's not magic, that's orchestration. Now, focus. Why this works in Microsoft land. 3 ingredients snap together like a disciplined SRE. MCP is the wiring. It advertises tools, Microsoft Graph endpoints, service catalogs, knowledge lookups. In a standard shape the model can discover dynamically. No brittle adapters, no hard-coded plugins. The tool shelf labels itself. In short, MCP makes your tools visible and standard to the model. Semantic Kernel is the control panel. It turns those tools into callable kernel functions, plans multi-step work, and handles the JSON schemas models expect for function calling. You don't juggle payloads, SK shapes the energy. In short, SK decides the steps and shapes the calls. Azure OpenAI with managed identity is the safe power source. The model can call functions, but identity gates the voltage. Managed identity means tokens aren't strewn around like gasoline. The containment field holds. In short, identity keeps every action inside the blast shield. But they are slippery. Chatty agents hallucinate authority. Acting agents must be leashed, scoped permissions, approval gates for high-risk actions, and logging that glows like radioactive paint. The trick is making the fast path automatic and the dangerous path explicit. Another micro story. A help desk was drowning in password reset tickets during onboarding waves. The agent read the ticket, validated user status in Entra via Graph, MCP tool, checked MFA registration, issued a compliant reset with a temporary password, notified the user, and closed the loop in the ITSM. Tickets didn't shrink, they vanished, weekends returned. The game changer nobody talks about is verification. An agent that acts must prove it did. After a remediation call, it requeries the signal. Did latency fall? Is the unhealthy probe count 0? Did permissions remain least privileged? If not, it rolls back or escalates. Boom. Closed loop control. Let's pause here. Key takeaway. Stop treating AI as a mouth. Wire it as hands with a brain. MCP connects, semantic kernel orchestrates, managed identity contains, and your incident queue turns from wildfire into predictable chemistry. What an AI agent actually is, the 6-part molecule. Now, tighten the molecule stream. A capable IT ops agent is a 6-part molecule: persona, memory, planner, tools, policy, and verifier. Miss one, and the compound becomes unstable. Let's synthesize each cleanly. Persona, the operating temperament. It's your SRE temperament encoded. cautious with production, decisive with toil. You give concise goals, maintain web API SLOs, prefer rollbacks to risky hotfixes, narrate actions briefly, never escalate privileges. The persona sets bias. Without it, the model's plasma spreads, hot, aimless, memory. Short-term context plus durable facts. Short-term is the thread, current incident, telemetry snapshots, the last action. Durable is environment state, service mappings, maintenance windows, tenant boundaries, and don't touch prod after 5 p.m. Friday. In SK, you attach memories or external stores. The agent stays anchored. Memory prevents goldfish remediation. Planner, the brainstem. This is where SK shines. Given an intention. Resolve elevated 5x on API. The planner decomposes. Gather metrics. Correlate to recent changes. Isolate scope. Select remediation. Execute. Verify. Report. SK can run sequential, concurrent, or graph-shaped workflows. Think of it as the Reactor's timing circuit. No sparks until the sequence is safe. Microglimpse. A planner forks two sub-agents. One scrapes deployment logs, the other samples metrics. They return, the planner fuses results, chooses rollback. Concurrency without chaos. Tools. The actuators and sensors. Through MCP, the agent discovers callable tools, Microsoft Graph for Entra and Teams incidents, service health, Intune device actions, your internal APIs for drain, undeploy, knowledge lookups for runbooks. SK wraps them as kernel functions and hands the model a JSON schema. The model decides to call drain node ID with parameters. You don't handcraft payloads. SK presents them in a safe beaker.
Tool descriptions matter. Write them like you'd brief a junior SRE, clear, explicit, no implied magic.
Be explicit. Use drain node for blue-green pools only, never on prod without change approved true. TAM, the schema is your guardrail language. Policy, the containment field. Managed identity gates who can do what? Role-based scopes. Limit the blast radius. High-risk tools require an approval token or a human-in-the-loop step. And everything logs, inputs, chosen tools, parameters, outputs into your audit sync. Policy separates a helpful chemist from an arsonist. Here's the shortcut nobody teaches. Encode policy at the tool boundary, not only in prompts. If a tool demands change approved, true. The agent can't bypass it with flowery language. Physics, not etiquette. Verifier, the Geiger counter. After action, the agent measures the environment. Did 5x drop below threshold for 5 minutes? Is the pool balanced? Did we violate any SRs? If verification fails, the planner branches, rollback, alternative fix, or escalate with a crisp payload for a human. Verification closes the loop. Otherwise, you're guessing with lasers. Quick example. The agent scales out from 4 to 8 instances, waits 2 minutes, checks P95 latency. If unchanged, it undoes the scale, inspects thread pools, then rolls back the last deployment. It posts a summary with links to Grafana and the change ID. Discipline, not drama. Common mistakes to avoid. Vague personas that let the agent improvise governance. Unscoped tools that expose uranium-grade APIs to a chatty model. Plans without verification. Actions fire, nobody checks the radiation. Now you try. Password resets, tiny and tight. Persona. Automate compliant resets for onboarded users. Memory, roster, and MFA status. Planner. Verify eligibility. Reset. Notify. Confirm sign-in. Tools. Graph read, reset, email. Policy. Least privilege. Approvals for privileged roles. Verifier. Check next sign-in success. If you remember nothing else, persona aims, memory anchors, planner sequences, tools execute, policy contains, verifier proves. That's a stable agent. Microsoft Stack, SK MCP, Azure AI Foundry. Now we wire the reactor. You've got the 6-part molecule, so let's bind it to the Microsoft Stack, where the energy is dense but containable. 3 layers, 1 flow. MCP is the wiring. Semantic Kernel is the control panel. Azure AI Foundry is the power grid and the audit room. Together they turn intent into action with guardrails. First, MCP, the Model Context Protocol. Think of it as standardized lab glassware. Every tool, Microsoft Graph calls, in-tune device actions, service health, your internal change API declares itself with a schema, name, parameters, safety notes. The agent doesn't need custom adapters. It discovers tools dynamically. You add a new MCP server for change calendar, and boom, the instrument appears on the bench. No brittle code, no secret menus, just a labeled shelf that the model can see and use. In short, MCP makes your tools visible and standard to the model. Now focus. Semantic Kernel sits on top and acts as the control panel. SK pulls those MCP tools and wraps them as kernel functions with clear signatures. It plans the work, sequential, concurrent, or graph-shaped, and when the model needs to act, SK forms the exact JSON schema for function calling. You never juggle payloads or guess parameter shapes. SK hands the model a tray of safe beakers and says, pick the right one, fill it to here, keep the acid away from the base. Pure, undiluted orchestration. In short, SK decides the steps and shapes the calls. This is where most shops stumble. Identity. Azure OpenAI can do tool calling, but without identity, it's a loose wire arcing across the floor. Managed identity is your insulated cable. Every tool invocation runs under a managed principle with precisely scoped permissions. Read incidents allowed. Reset global admin passwords. Denied unless a change token is present. You bind SK's tool executors to managed identity, and now the model's hands can't reach past the gloves. Containment first. In short, identity and Foundry make sure nothing runs outside the blast shield. Let me show you the choreography at runtime. The agent receives intent. Resolve elevated 5xx on Web API. SK's planner spawns 2 branches. Branch 1 uses an MCP tool that queries application insights metrics. Branch 2 uses a Graph MCP tool to pull recent deployments and service health advisories. Results come back. The planner correlates. Spike starts 5 minutes after deployment, 2025 or 11:04. It chooses the rollback slot tool, marked as high risk. Policy requires an approval token because it touches production. The agent knows this. Tool schema says change approved must be true. It calls the request change tool, posts context to the approver's Teams channel via graph, waits, receives a signed token, executes rollback, then triggers the verifier, poll P95, error rate, and probe health for 5 minutes. If green, it posts an incident summary. If not, it escalates with a clean state snapshot. Elegance, safety, speed. The game changer nobody talks about is dynamic tool discovery. With MCP, your tool inventory can evolve without redeploying the agent. You publish a new drain subset by build tool to handle canary failures. Next run, SK refreshes tools, the model sees it, and the planner prefers the narrower blast radius. You just moved from sledgehammer rollbacks to precision surgery without rewiring the panel. Azure AI Foundry now, this is the grid and the clipboard. You define model deployments, approve which tools an agent may call, and route messages through governed threads. Critical. You also capture traces, prompts, tool calls, parameters, outputs, so audits aren't guesswork. If a regulator asks, why did the agent reset 73 accounts last Friday? You open the log and show the requesters, the justification, the tool schemas, the approval tokens, and the verification results. Clear deterministic chemistry, no smoke. Quick micro story from the field. A network team added an MCP server for their load balancer control plane. Drain, attach, change weight. Before, change windows were manual and slow. After the agent came online, SK planned. Detect imbalance, drain hot nodes, redistribute weight, verify packet loss, then schedule a gradual reattach. Managed identity limited scope to the front-end pool only. Incidents that used to burn an hour shrank to 8 minutes end-to-end with logs to match, not drama. Procedure. Now tighten the molecule stream. Tool descriptions are your physics. Write them like laws, not suggestions. Use reset password only when user. Account enabled is true and risk state is none. For privileged roles, require approval token. Models obey schema better than pros, and always encode safety at the boundary. If the tool rejects missing approval, you've codified governance where it counts. Once you nail that, everything else clicks. MCP gives you modular instruments. SK orchestrates multi-step reactions. Managed identity enforces least privilege, and Azure AI Foundry records the experiment. You get agents that plan, act, and prove it without handing uranium to a chatbot. Key takeaway, compressed to one line. SK orchestrates, MCP connects, Foundry governs, managed identity contains, so your agent's power is usable, traceable, and safe. Blueprint 1, SK Planner plus Graph via MCP, IT Ops. Time to assemble a working containment field you can copy. We'll wire Semantic Kernel's planner to Microsoft Graph through MCP so the agent can investigate and remediate a live-seeming IT Ops incident without brittle code or leaking power. Scenario: elevated 5xx on Web API after a deployment. Objective: diagnose, correlate with changes, propose lowest blast radius fix, execute if safe, verify, and report automatically. Why this blueprint matters. Most teams stall on, how do I make the model use my systems safely? This pattern answers it with 3 bindings: tools via MCP, plans via SK, identity via your runtime, and bakes verification into the end. The scaffold, conceptually. Intention: reduce 5x to baseline while preserving SLO. Plan, shape, concurrent first, then converge. Metrics branch, change history branch. Tools via MCP. App Insights query, read-only telemetry. Graph service, health, advise if there's a broader incident. Graph changelog, deployments approvals, drain subset by build, load balancer, rollback slot, deployment, post-incident note, ITSM teams, policy hints in tool schemas, approval tokens required on rollback slot, safe by default on drain subset by build, strict parameter enums, timestamps for correlation. Now, the SK planner. You give SK the high-level goal and the available kernel functions, which it got from MCP discovery. It decomposes. Phase A, assess, parallel, app insights, query for error rate, and P95, scope to last 30 minutes. Graph changelog for deployments to the same service. Graph service, health for advisories. The model reads results, notifies the planner. Spike began 6 minutes after build 2025-111. 04. No global advisory. Affected nodes share build tag B4421. Phase B. Decide. Choose the narrowest fix. Drain subset by build tag B4421 %50. Safety. Allowed without approval token because it's reversible and scoped. The tool description explicitly states changes revert in 10 minutes unless verification affirms. Phase C. Act. Invoke drain subset by build. Start verifier. Poll app insights every 60 seconds for 5 minutes. Thresholds: P95 down 30%, 5xx below 5%. Phase D. If verification fails, escalate action. Request approval, token for rollback slot, with justification. Post-deploy error, spike mapped to build B4421, drain, ineffective, rolling back to previous slot. Await token. If granted, invoke rollback slot. Run verifier again with the same thresholds. Phase E, report, post-incident. Note summarizing actions, metrics before, after, and links to dashboards and change IDs. Observe the anomaly. The magic isn't in prose, it's in tool schemas and planner choreography. MCP advertises each tool with clear names, parameters, and constraints. SK wraps them as kernel functions and auto-constructs the JSON schema the model needs to call them. You don't handcraft payloads, you define physics, inputs, allowed ranges, and approval rules. Micro story. A customer's staging ring kept spiking after Canary deploys. They added one MCP tool, drain subset by build, with a percentage parameter and a hard ceiling of 50 in the schema. Instantly, the planner gained a low-risk move. Incidents that used to jump to rollbacks now stabilized with a 10-minute drain and observe. The uranium stayed in the vault. The beaker handled the heat. Common pitfalls and how this blueprint avoids them. Brittle adapters. MCP eliminates hard-coded plugins. New tools appear dynamically. Prompt-only governance. Policy embedded at the tool boundary prevents sweet-talked violations. Blind action. Verifier is non-negotiable. Poll objective metrics before claiming victory. Implementation notes you'll actually use. Keep tool descriptions specific. Drain subset. By build reduces traffic to nodes with build tag. Use for Canary regional issues. Reversible. No approval required. Name parameters with business clarity. Build tag. Percentage. Change ID. Add consistent telemetry tags to every action. The verifier reads them to correlate cause and effect. Let's pause. Key takeaway. SK plans, MCP wires, and your tools become disciplined actuators. You get fast, narrow fixes first, safe escalation second, and proof at the end. Delicious security. Blueprint 2. Azure OpenAI tool calling with managed identity. Now, tighten the cable. Azure OpenAI tool calling, but every spark flows through managed identity. This is the moment the model's hands enter the glove box. The goal: let the model pick and call tools, but force every execution to authenticate as a managed principal with least privilege. No secrets, no stray tokens, no accidental overreach, pure, insulated power. The flow, conceptually: agent receives intent. Auto-resolve eligible password reset tickets under policy. Tools exposed via MCP executed under MI. Graph get user, read user status, risk state. Graph reset password, temporary password, require reset on next sign in. Graph notify user, email, Teams message. ITS update, ticket, status, resolution notes. Tool schemas declare safety rules. Graph reset password requires user, account enabled, true end user, risk state, none. For privileged roles, approval token is required and must be verified by a separate approve change tool. Azure OpenAI tool calling. The model chooses tools. SK shapes the JSON schema, but execution passes through a function executor that acquires an access token via managed identity at runtime, scoped to the specific graph permissions, NRG, user read basic, all directory. Access as user? No. Use app permissions with constrained app roles. You see, managed identity is not just convenience, it's the containment field. The executor calls Azure AD, obtains a token for graph based on the managed principals assigned roles, then calls the tool endpoint. If a tool isn't permitted, it fails closed. No prompt can change physics. Microstory, onboarding surge week, 1,800 tickets. The agent filters by policy, enabled accounts, no risk flags, non-privileged roles. It resets, notifies, and updates tickets. For 42 privileged accounts, it requests approval tokens. Security approves 39, denies 3. The agent closes 1,797 tickets unattended and routes 3 with full context. MTTR drops to minutes. Weekends come back online. Critical implementation moves. Separate read and write tools with different managed identities or scopes. Reading status should be broad. Writing should be narrow and auditable. Encode approval at the write tool boundary. Approval token isn't a prompt instruction. It's a required parameter with signature verification. Emit an audit envelope on every call. Principal add, tool name, parameters, sanitized, correlation ID, and outcome. Route to your logging sync. Why Azure OpenAI tool calling helps. The model's planner can choose the correct sequence, read user, evaluate policy, branch for privileged users, reset, verify sign-in flag, notify, close ticket, without you hardwiring if-else ladders. But identity ensures every step is shackled to explicit permission. Common mistakes that set labs on fire. Using a generic God identity with broad graph permissions. Don't. Split identities by function and environment, relying on prompt text for safety. Tools must enforce constraints in code and schema. Skipping verification. After reset, requery sign-in state or test a low-risk signal before closing. Quick twist. Rotate models without changing your security posture. Tool calling contracts stay the same. Managed identity scopes stay the same. Swap GPT family versions or add reasoning modes and the gloves still fit. That's the beauty. Models evolve. Your containment holds. One-line takeaway. Let the model decide, but let managed identity decide what's allowed. Autonomous action, blast radius in centimeters, not kilometers. If a blueprint 3, incident auto-remediation and IT ops. Time to unleash closed-loop control. The reactor that fixes itself while you sleep will assemble an auto-remediation path that starts with detection, flows through safe actions, and ends with proof. No heroics, just disciplined chemistry. Trigger. A sentinel detects elevated error rates or abnormal latency on web API. The agent ingests the alert payload, service, region, thresholds crossed, timestamps. Memory loads, recent deployments, maintenance windows, and current topology, intention forms. Restore SLO with minimal blast radius. Planner spin-up. Phase A, assess. 2 concurrent probes ignite. Metrics via App Insights query, and change context via graph change log. A third checks service health for broader noise. Within seconds, the planner correlates. Spike began 4 minutes post-deploy in region A. Specific nodes share build tag B44421. No global advisory. Now the agent has a hypothesis. Canary contamination. Phase B, constrain. The lowest voltage move wins first. The planner selects drain subset by build with percentage 30, scope and region A. Tool schema allows it without approval because it's reversible and time-bound. Execution happens under managed identity, permissioned only for that pool. The verifier activates, poll P95 and 5VecX for 5 minutes. Annotate every sample with correlation ID and action tag. Observe the anomaly. If metrics improve within 2 minutes, the planner holds the drain, schedules a gradual reattach, and monitors for regression for 10 minutes. If improvement is marginal or negative, the planner escalates to phase C, rollback. It requests an approval token via approve change, posts a crisp justification in Teams. Error spike map to build B4421. 30% drain ineffective, requesting slot rollback. Approver clicks, token returns. Rollback slot executes, again under managed identity with narrow scope. Now the Verifier's Geiger counter ticks. Thresholds, P95 down 30%, 5XX under 5%, probe health green for 5 continuous minutes. If all green, phase D, report. The agent posts an incident summary, before, after metrics graphs, actions taken, tool parameters, approval token ID, links to dashboards and change IDs. It updates the ITSM ticket to resolved with artifacts attached. If verification fails, phase E, branch. The planner considers alternative fixes, scale out 25%, reset connection pools, or isolate by path for a suspected hot endpoint, each encoded as MCP tools with their own safety physics. Each action cycles through the same verify or rollback loop. Microstory, a payment API started spiking 5x right after a Friday patch. The agent drained 25%. Saw no relief, requested approval, rolled back, and posted the forensic bundle. Root cause, a thread starvation bug in the new build. MTTR, 14 minutes, human effort, 1 approving click. That's not bravado, that's guardrailed automation. Crucial safety patterns that keep the lab from exploding. Narrow first actions, drains and isolates before deploy changes. Time-boxed reversibility. Every risky move auto-reverts if metrics don't confirm. Approval at the boundary. High-risk tools won't run without a signed token. Immutable audit envelopes. Log principal ID, tool, parameters, sanitized, and outcomes. One sentence takeaway. Auto-remediation isn't a guess. It's a loop of assess, constrain, act, verify, and prove, all contained by identity and policy. Business outcomes, proving it works. Now the voltage you can feel. Numbers are fine. Consequences sell. Reduced MTTR isn't just efficiency. It's sleep returned to engineers and incident fatigue evaporating from your on-call rotation. Tickets auto-resolved. When the password reset agent runs under policy, onboarding waves stop flooding the queue. Those tickets don't wait. They disappear. That means fewer handoffs, fewer SLAs breached, and frontline staff focusing on exceptions that actually need judgment. Each ticket avoided saves minutes. At scale, it buys back headcount capacity without layoffs. Room to tackle the backlog you've ignored for a year. Lead conversion lift. For IT ops, translated. Faster provisioning and cleaner access means sales tools work when reps need them. Every minute shaved from access issues is a minute added to pipeline creation. It's not abstract. It's missing a quarter versus hitting it. Cycle time reduction shows up everywhere. Changes that used to take a swarm now flow through MCP tools with encoded approvals. The planner handles the choreography. Humans approve high-risk pivots. Result? Deployment-related incidents shrink from hours to minutes, and the post-mortem has receipts, tool calls, tokens, thresholds, so learning compounds rather than dissolves into blame. Microstory. A retailer's weekend incident spikes used to eat 2 engineers' Saturdays. After wiring the drain then verify loop and enforcing managed identity per pool, the same class of incidents now resolves in under 10 minutes, mostly unattended. Those engineers didn't just get time back, they stopped dreading the pager. Attrition dipped. Recruiting got easier. That's culture impact measured in uptime. Executives ask, where's the ROI? Here's a crisp frame. Time, MTTR down 40-70% on repeatable failure modes. Ticket deflection, 60-90%. Change cycle time cut 50% plus with parallel assess and safe early actions. Risk. Constrained identities, schema-bound tools, and full audits compress overreach. People, fewer burnt out on calls, lower attrition, more time for deep work. But the real win is risk compression. Managed identity and schema-bound tools make overreach mathematically harder. You're not trusting vibes, you're enforcing laws. Audits stop being archaeology and become exports. Automation isn't just about machines working more, it's about humans burning out less. If you remember one thing, outcomes compound when agents both act and prove it. MTTR drops, queues clear, change moves faster, and risk stays contained. Delicious security, guardrails and responsibility, power without containment is just an explosion waiting for a witness. If you wire agents into IT ops, you inherit a duty. Encode responsibility as physics, not poetry. Let's set the guardrails that keep the reactor humming instead of turning the data center into glass. First, identity boundaries. You never give an agent a God credential. You split managed identities by domain and action, read identities for telemetry and inventories, write identities for scoped actuators, and high-risk identities that can only execute with an approval token. This isn't belt and suspenders, it's the blast shield. If an agent attempts rollback slot with the read identity, it should fail closed. If it attempts a privileged reset without a token, it should fail loud. Your goal is deterministic denial. Second, policy at the tool edge. Tool schemas must express law, not vibes. Required parameters for risk, approval token, change ID justification. Enumerated scopes, allowed regions, pools, services. Range clamps, percentage between and 50 for drains, timeouts capped, retries bounded. Preconditions, user, account, enabled, must be true. Risk state must be none. Maintenance, window, must be closed. This is why you encode never touch prod after 5 p.m. Friday as a guard in the tool, not a suggestion in a prompt. The tool is the valve. Prompts are the labels. Third, human in the loop, engineered like a circuit, not a panic button. High-risk tools require an approval flow the agent can trigger but not shortcut. That means an approve change tool that posts a crisp, verifiable request. What, why, where, blast radius. An approval token, signed, server-side, time-bound, and tied to that exact action. A second verification that the token matches parameters at execution time. No swapping a rollback for a redeploy mid-flight. The Geiger counter watches the token too. Fourth, audit envelopes. Every tool call emits an immutable record. Caller principal, ID, tool name, parameters, sanitized of secrets, correlation ID, timestamps, return status, and any changes to state. Route these to your centralized logging sync and retain them under your compliance policy. This transforms postmortems into science, repeatable, inspectable, boring. Marvelous. Fifth, red teams for agents. If it's not enforced at the tool boundary, it's not real policy. Before you trust an auto-remediation path, attack it. Attempt prompt injections in context. Ignore policy. Simulate approval. Force parameter 100. The tool should refuse on schematics before the model can improvise. Now, tighten the molecule stream. Apply concurrency pressure. Approve twice, revoke once, execute thrice. The system must deduplicate, honor revocations, and record intent versus outcome. Treat your agent like a new SRE. It doesn't get root until it survives fire drills. Sixth, scope drift monitoring. Tools evolve, permissions creep. You need a scheduled job, yes, an agent that audits tool definitions, managed identity assignments, and effective graph scopes against a golden policy. If a permission expands, it alerts. If a tool adds a parameter without a range, it blocks publication. This is the feedback loop that preserves safety as you grow. Seventh, data minimization and privacy. Agents love context, but context bleeds. For user-facing tasks, resets, access, Pass only attributes necessary for the action. Mask PII in logs by default. For team chat notifications, send links to secure dashboards instead of raw payloads. The principle is simple. Handle volatile compounds in a fume hood, not on the cafeteria table. 8th, failure choreography. When tools fail, the planner must fail usefully. Safe fallback first. Revert, pause, or isolate. Escalate with a complete, compact state bundle. What changed? What failed? What remains safe? Do not retry blindly across environments. A failed drain in region A does not authorize a drain in region B unless policy says so. 9th, model governance. You will rotate models. You will test reasoning modes. Do it behind an abstraction. Keep tool contracts stable and security posture constant while you A/B model configurations in Foundry. If a candidate model produces more tool call errors, it does not graduate. The gloves must fit the new hands. Finally, training and ownership. Assign a product owner for your agent like you would any critical service. They maintain tool catalogs, review audit trends, track incident classes handled, and tune policy thresholds. And train your humans. How to approve, when to deny, how to interpret the agent's summaries. The future is collaborative. Human judgment at the boundaries, machine precision in the middle. Key takeaway: responsibility is not a memo. It's encoded in identity, schemas, approvals, audits, and deliberate failure paths. Build guardrails as laws of physics, and your agent becomes a safe, tireless colleague, not a chaos engine. The agent era starts now. If you remember one thing, wire AI as hands with a brain, SK orchestrates, MCP connects, Foundry governs, managed identity contains, and let verification prove the result. Start with one flow, drain then verify for post-deploy spikes, encode approvals at the tool edge and route every call to audit. Then expand. Subscribe and watch the advanced blueprint next. Delicious security awaits.